is answering the call of God. If you're searching for answers and looking for advice, join us for Pathway to the Pulpit, hosted by Pastor Claude Cheatham, as he shares stories and life advice for those trying to become the person that God has called them to be. With numerous guests and tons of content to be shared, there's plenty of information to be learned. Join now and be a part of what God is trying to do in this season.
Grace and peace, love and joy from my Father. I'm Pastor Claude Cheatham, host for Pathways to the Pulpit. Man, this is a time of discovery and dialogue with our young preachers. Man, I'm so excited to be a young preacher, a millennial voice that gets to speak into our generation. It's so necessary and needed. It's really necessary because our generation needs voices that pour into each other. Man, we cannot go anywhere without each other, and we need each other to impact each other. And that's what Pathway to the Pulpit is. It's a time of discovery and dialogue to where young preachers will hear the wisdom of seasoned senior pastors that have traveled this path, that will be able to dig back on years of old and share their wisdom, share their experiences in their first church, share their wisdom throughout seminary, share their wisdom on how they manage life, how they manage their marriage, how they manage their personhood. This is really a time of discovery for our young preachers. How to manage sermon development. All of these things we will cover. Womanist theology. We will have times to where we will share with young preachers things that young preachers may not have heard. Pulpit decorum. All of these things we will share in Pathway to the Pulpit. And all we're missing is you. You've got to join us. That you don't want to miss these times of discovery and dialogue. The only thing that's missing is you. Look forward to having you. Good day, good day, good day. Certainly we're thankful and grateful to have you back with us. Pathways to the Pulpit. Again, I am Pastor Claude Cheatham. I'm the host of Pathways to the Pulpit, and I'm just excited and delighted that we've had the opportunity to grow together, that we've had the opportunity to encourage each other and learn together as we've had some incredible topics and some marvelous presenters sharing their experiences and their perspective that we could glean from as they shared their wisdom with us. Just to share with you what we've been doing. This is a time to encourage young preachers, to enlighten young preachers, also to just have dialogue with some senior pastors as well as those that are young adult pastors, if you will, sharing their experiences as it is they've walked through this journey in ministry. And so we had Bishop John Guns. He shared with us bivocational ministry, specifically those of which that are pursuing higher education. As well, we shifted from there into a marvelous and intuitive conversation on womanist theology by Pastor Nicole Guns, who did a remarkable and incredible job. And we took it a step higher. Pastor Chris McKee sharing on social justice. And on last week, Bishop Lee Alfred Thomas, who is a church planner, shared his perspective on church planning as he's planted a ministry over 20 years ago, but he planted a little different. Today, I am ecstatic. I am elated. I'm enthused to have my brother, beloved, man, one of my best friends, incredible pastor, young adult millennial pastor, but is doing a remarkable job. He has the pleasure of pastoring two churches in the area of North Carolina by the name of Mount Moriah Community Church, Raleigh, as well as Deeper Life Ministries in Goldsboro. He's a graduate of North Carolina Theological Seminary, as well as he is a bishop designate, which we're excited to celebrate with him, of Life Changing Ministries International Fellowship. And that's none other than my brother beloved, Pastor Bishop-elect Aaron McNair II. Man, thanks for jumping on, man. Thanks for being with me.
Man, it is absolutely my pleasure, and I'm excited about this opportunity to share.
Man, you got on your fedora, Doc. You somebody to know. Man, I will scream to the rooftops, man, how much of a blessing, man, you are to me, man. I just want to just share this for all of our young preachers, man. Connect with some people that will bless your life. Every young preacher may not be the best for you, but connect with some young preachers that will encourage you, that will strengthen you, that you can go to in times, and Pastor Aaron Miner has been there for me in some of my darkest hours, man. And I'm just thankful for our relationship, bro. Man, let's really jump into this thing, man. You are a church planter. And I understand that our generation, man, there are two types of pastors for our generation, one of which that will pastor established churches that will have that privilege. But then there are others that will begin the process of planting a work. And man, you did a remarkable job. Man, share with us before jumping into your planting process, man, and what that looks like. Share a little bit about your call to ministry and what God has been doing in your life thus far.
Oh man, I was called to ministry at the age of 15. And
Wow.
well, I always say that you're not a real preacher if you didn't bootleg for a little while.
Right.
So I was called to ministry at 15. And so I actually started traveling just a little bit, as much as my father would allow, just preaching youth revivals and things of that nature here and there. But I did not preach my initial sermon until I was 19 years old.
Man, I did not know that. Wow.
Yeah. So I was bootlegging for a little while, and then my father allowed me to go forward in ministry. But my father had me in homiletics and hermeneutics classes in ninth grade.
Wow.
Yeah, with all the associate ministers of the church, I was sitting in there with my homework on one side and my notepad for class on the other side.
Man, it's nothing like being a young preacher.
Oh yeah. But my journey has been an amazing journey. Started at 19, as I said, in 2007, and God has blessed our ministry thus far.
Wow, man. So let's shift into this massive undertaking, which many of our young preachers are really going down this avenue, man, of planting. Man, what was your thought process before starting Mount Moriah?
My thought process before starting was, first of all, I'm never pastoring. That was my initial, being a PK and growing up in church, growing up from the organ and seeing everything that takes place in the church, going through everything that you saw your parents go through and seeing that firsthand. My mentality was, Lord, I'll preach for you as long as you want me to, but I'll never pastor.
Wow.
And my father actually planted MMCC Raleigh. It was the first church plant that he had did, and he planted MMCC Raleigh, but his load was so heavy. I was seeing my father preach 4 to 5 times on a Sunday. And so my initial process or mindset before pastoring was to help my leader. It was to take a load off of my leader. So after I wrestled with God on not pastoring, I sat down with my leader and asked for permission to take the load of that location off of him.
Wow. So essentially, man, pastoring for you began as you just really seeking to serve and taking that load off, man. So as you got into it, man, what became your influences?
I would say that it was really trying to find other young preachers who were doing what I was doing, because I had to go through a relaunch process. Okay.
Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, because the people that were coming when my father was there were not the people that stayed after he left. And so I understood that I'm going to attract a whole different crowd, as would any pastor. I'm going to attract a lot of young people. And so I had to relaunch the church with my father's schedule. He kind of ran everything kind of like a revival center, and me coming in was an opportunity by his instruction to bring systems, to bring structure, to bring order, and really form it into a self-sufficient church. And so that was my assignment going into pastoring. And so most of my influences were pastors who really had a niche for systems and structures and putting things in order. And I think that's one of my strong points today, is that all you have to do is wake me up and give me time to wipe the sleep from my eyes, and I can bring system, structure, and order to anything that you put in front of me. That started from that rocky beginning of pastoring.
Yeah, man, we're going to come back to that systems and structures, because I want you to share share about the process of planting, and what that looks like and what that includes. But before we do that, I want to just hit on something a bit personal, because I understand that, in planting, you've got to have some type of sustainable income, in the planting process. Were you working a job after, in the planting process? Is that something you recommend? Do you feel like it took time away? Well, what would you share about working a job and planting the ministry?
Well, see, I was in the school system as well as the minister of music for my father's church. Because my father started the ministry, we would do 10 a.m. in the main location and then 6 p.m. in the Raleigh location. So when I took over, all I did was move it up 1 hour. That way I still kept my job as the minister of music in my father's church, and I still worked in the school system. Those first couple of years, if you're planning, those first couple of years are investment years. You're going to be poured into your church a lot. So you can't always look to your church to be sustainable income. There'll be times where your people will see, what you have done and want to bless you, and you'll end up returning it back to the church, just because in the beginning stages, the church is not strong enough to be self-sufficient. So I absolutely advise that young pastors take time to get your education, get a sustainable job that will help you to be a help to your church. You're going to have to be the financial backing of the church that you're building, and I was looking at that today, because we were doing a lot of restructuring today in the office. And one of the things that I saw was how I was thinking about coming upstairs in our old location, praying that there's 10 people upstairs, and then, saying, I pray that we raise $1,000 this Sunday. Wow. To now our church needing $20,000 a month to function. Wow. And so we've seen God through all of those processes. And it started out, I didn't go full-time ministry until 5 years of pastoring.
Wow.
Yeah. And when I say full-time ministry, I mean coming off the organ and coming off the secular job. It was not till 5 years of pastoring, but I had an influence, Pastor Welton Smith, who told me, hey, those first 4 years, you're not going to get any money from it. He said, you're not going to get any money from it. This is your time of building. And almost true to the date of his word, that came to pass.
Wow. No, that's big, man. So as you were sharing on some of those steps, one of which was organization and processing and strategy, what are the steps in your estimation to building a strong church plant?
Oh, man. You have to start, first of all, with personal development. Personal development. You got to be right before you sign up to lead other people. When you become a pastor, you become a person of example, a person of responsibility, and you must be a person of discipline. So that personal development is very important to your start in your journey of pastoring. You're the example. You become pastor, you become example, you become father to so many people. And you have to have yourself together, lest you embarrass the people in which you are leading. After that personal development, I would say location is important. Praying to God and seeing in what direction he wants you to go as far as the necessity of what you're planning. You can't just plant just to be planning, but there has to be a need for what God has put inside of you. And then where do I place that need? After that, connections are important. You do not have to do it by yourself. You do not have to operate as if you're on an island. Find other pastors who have been through the process and make those connections. The city in which you're going to, take time to talk to the gatekeepers of that city, and get their insight, get their concepts, get their ideas, see where you're actually needed in the city. And then after that, I think that's when the team building comes in. This is where you're actually going to get your people together who will help you in the journey. And I think that the team building is twofold. First of all, you're trying to get people to be on your team, and then you want to build the people who are on your team. There has to be a lot of leadership training, leadership development, a lot of vision impartation before you launch. Before you even say, this is our first service, everybody that is on your team should be speaking just like you speak. They should be your echoes. And I say this to many young preachers, and that is, you don't need a building until you build it.
Wow. Say that again, man. That's big.
Yeah, you don't need a building until you need a building. Many people go get a building because we have that mentality, build it and they will come. No, build it and you'll struggle with it.
Wow.
You need a building until you absolutely have to have your own building.
Wow. Man, I think those are some incredible steps, man. What was that moment of peace? You talked about how you didn't want to pastor, but God shifted you into it. You accepted the will of God. What was that moment of peace when you decided on what God told you to do?
Oh man, I would say it wasn't necessarily a moment of peace as much as it was confirmation and an explosion of passion. When I finally said yes, that's when God released vision, God released insight, God released concepts, and that passion to go after it really hit my spirit. It wasn't until I said yes that all of that came about. And I want to say this, and that is, all young pastors, you cannot pastor in defense mode.
Wow.
It's going to be very hard for you to try to lead God's people and you're fighting against God.
Wow.
Don't step out there until your yes is sure.
Wow. That's man, that's heavy there, Doc. Bro, man, you have done a remarkable job. And I'm sure in the process of watching Mount Moriah grow from, as you talked about, from 10 to now, I'm sure over 100.
Yes, sir.
There had to be some lessons. There was some, you began. How old were you when you first started pastoring Mount Moriah?
I started pastoring at 27 years old.
27, and you're now
34.
34. Some lessons in the process, and I understand that in order to reach production, there has to be process, and there's always some lessons embedded into that. What are some lessons you will share with our Pathway to the Pulpit family, young preachers, on some of the development, some of the lessons you had to learn in the process?
Number one is financial discipline. You're not just balancing your money, you're balancing God's money first and then people's money. It's God's money, which means there's a spiritual component to it, that when people sow their seeds into the church, they lay it at the feet of the apostle. You have to be able to handle it with integrity because it is a spiritual transaction. But then there's also, you're dealing with people's money, and there has to be integrity in that, or you will have a people who won't sow.
Wow.
So that financial discipline is very important, knowing what to do with the money, knowing how to handle the money, knowing what to buy for your church, in what season to buy it in, is very important. And I would also say preaching shifts. Preaching shifts.
Talk about that, man. That's deep.
Yeah, when you start pastoring, after you've been pastoring for a little while, your preaching will shift, because when you go into pastoring, you have the mentality of that evangelistic, itinerant preacher mode.
I'm a killer.
When you start pastoring and start to connect with your people and seeing the needs of your people and hearing God clearly, it's going to shift your preaching, and you'll understand that these are your sheep, and in order to care for your sheep, there's a certain level of teaching and preaching that has to come forth. And one of the biggest lessons that I'm still learning today is patience.
Wow.
Patience. You have to be patient with people. You have to be patient with processes. You have to be patient with seasons that your church is in, because you want the vision to come to pass, and you want it to come to pass right now. But you have to have patience so that your church can grow and not swell. It has to grow in a healthy manner and not swell up. And I would also say that you got to be ready for seasonal people. All right. Because everybody that comes to your church does not come to stay the whole time. Some people come for certain seasons. You have some gifts that come in that they're there to help your church get to this level for this particular season. And when they get your church to that level, their season there is up. And you have to be okay with releasing people from your care and from your oversight.
Wow, man, when you start talking about that seasonal assignment, if you will, I mean, that's really big, because you see that in the established churches, but I'm sure you see that a great deal in the church plant. Man, how would you encourage a pastor that is in that season where he or she has people that are coming and going? What would you say to encourage, or some word of advice based on where you've been in the process?
Yeah, if you can't handle departures, you can't handle arrivals. You cannot handle people leaving, then you're not fit to have people come in. Because there are some people, as I said, who will stay for the long haul, but then there are some people who are there for certain seasons, and they have to leave for those who are there for the new season to come in. And we have to be okay with seasonal saints. We have to be okay and not get in our feelings or feel personally attacked, because many times when their season is up, they're going to blame you for their departure, when in actuality, the season is just up.
Wow.
But you have to be mature enough. I was not. I was very much offended by people who left. I was very much upset. I took a lot of things personal. But I had to grow and understand that, first of all, I pastor with the gift of apostle. I pastor an apostolic house, which means I pastor a sending church, which means you'll come to me, you'll get training, you'll get development, and then it'll be your time to go to complete your assignment elsewhere. But I have to be okay with your season and your time being up. So I say to any young pastor, first of all, get your feelings off of your shoulder if you're going to pastor. If you're going to lead God's people, you got to remember that they're God's people and not yours.
Wow. Man, that's big. I'm sure, bro, in the process, as you started talking about those feelings, and we're getting ready to close, man. We got a couple more questions. Thank you again for taking the time, man. Those feelings, man, what I kept hearing in my spirit: get out of your feelings and get into your faith. But in that, man, did you ever, and I guess I want you to take the bishop off, and I want to talk to my bro Aaron at this point, right? Was there ever a point in this process where you felt like you made the wrong decision? And if so, what contributed to it?
You know what? And I was thinking about that, because Claude, I've honestly never felt like I made the wrong decision, although I felt like giving up on the decision I made.
Wow.
The pressure of pastoring, the timing in which God chooses to move, Ah, man, because God does not move things in your timing. I can show you the vision that I wrote out for pastoring. And um, I've been pastoring 7 years, and just talked to my administrator today, and she was going over finances with me and telling me where our church is. We're only halfway to where we're supposed to be. We're only halfway to the vision that I wrote out, that God gave me. So the timing puts a lot of weight and stress on you. The pressure of pastoring, the pressure of being there for people, the pressure of meeting non-communicative expectations that people did not communicate to you.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
Pressure, the pressure of always trying to be on point. Do you understand how much weight? And you understand, you pastor, so you understand the weight of doing amazing this week,
right?
And saying amen, wondering what am I going to do next week, because you have put that pressure. We're studious preachers, so we put pressure on ourselves to be on point every single week, right, to a people who don't remember what we said the first Sunday last month.
Right.
So there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of, you have to deal with the timing, and then finance. When you're starting a church, there's a lot of financial issues, and vision seems to be held back because you don't have all the finances. And so I never felt like I made the wrong decision, but I have felt like giving up on the decision that I made. But one of the things that helped me to keep going was having an amazing circle who has been through what I'm going through. So that you don't feel like you're by yourself. You don't feel like you're the only one. And if you just hold on, you'll have a testimony on the other side.
Wow. No, that's incredible, man. And you're definitely a true statement or a true picture of that testimony. If you could talk to have a conversation with yourself as a younger preacher, what would you say to you?
Save the money. Man, yeah. I would definitely say save the money. I was had a lot of enthusiasm as far as marketing and pushing the church is concerned. And so I wasn't very disciplined when I first started. I can remember church accounts being in the negative. I can remember lights being cut off at church. I can remember all of that. And that was because we were not as disciplined as we should have been in the beginning. And I will also say to myself, please be patient. Wait out the process. I would also say, control your feelings. Control your feelings. I have been guilty of exploding, of going to social media as a young pastor, and I had to learn those valuable lessons of integrity, that if I'm doing it right, I don't have to prove myself. If I'm doing it right, I don't have to defend myself. And so those are some of the things I would say to my younger self. And I will also say, continue to keep the balance. Don't be
about that, man. That's big.
Don't be so overcome by church that you neglect your family, that you neglect your marriage. Yeah, keep the balance.
Yeah, man. We're gonna eventually do something on family and marriages, and man, we might have you and Ashley come back, man, and share during that time. I think that'll be great. But man, as we're wrapping up, man, what advice would you give to a young preacher praying about starting their own ministry, but afraid of its longevity?
Number one, if God didn't say do it, don't do it. If God didn't say do it, don't do it. Preaching or pastoring, number one, is not a retirement from being an evangelistic itinerant preacher. And just because you're a good popular evangelist does not mean you're fit to pastor.
Facts, big facts.
I would say stay humble. Stay humble. And again, I go back to that, prepare for departures. And if you're pastoring, you got to have some backbone. Don't be afraid to make changes. I can go ahead and tell you, today was a day I was working with my leadership, and I made a lot of changes. We just came out of our total church conference within our fellowship. So we got so much information, so many different concepts, and it made me go back home and change my leadership.
Wow.
And with changing my leadership, I'm just waiting now for the offense to come. I'm waiting now for the phone calls to come. I'm waiting for the texts. I'm waiting for the.
And you're okay with it?
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm okay with it. You got to be okay with making change.
Yeah.
Because whenever God has called you to something, you either are going to bow down to people or serve Him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Man, you dropped a lot of wisdom on us, man. Again, as I say, man, you're my brother beloved, and I'm proud of what God is doing in your life, man. We celebrate you, man. Thank you for trusting the voice of God and launching out into the deep and going and beginning the process of reforming the Mount Moriah Church, and they're better because of it. Man, I love you, man. Thank you for joining, and thank you for taking time to share with us.
Love you too, man. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Man. All right. You heard it from Pastor McNair, the wisdom of understanding church planting. Jeff Kennedy once said, ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. All that is simply translated into is, I want to be here to help you grow. I want to grow with you. I want to be your partner as you're going through this process of the pathway. It's a journey. It's an experience, and we can grow together. Let's connect. Let's connect on social media. You can find me on platforms such as Facebook and Instagram at CDC2 Speaks. At CDC2 Speaks. I want to hear from you. I want to hear your stories. I want to laugh with you. I want to experience life with you. I want to grow with you as a young preacher. Let's grow together. I believe as we grow together, God has something amazing in store.
You have been watching Pathway to the Pulpit, hosted by Claude Douglas Cheatham Jr. of Edward Waters University. The program is designed to guide young clergy and HBU students to understand their divine assignment and maneuvering their pathway to destiny. For more information, you contact Claude Douglas Cheatham Jr. Edward Waters University, 1658 Kings Road, Jacksonville, Florida, 32209.
Dreaming about having your own podcast? Want to share your thoughts and ideas with the world but don't know how to do it? Maybe you're excited and committed but don't have a good space to record. Would you like a professional environment to produce all of your podcasts? Well, we have the latest technology from 4K to HD and various set layouts from green screen rooms to live studios. The Inspire Network is an actual television station where our studios are available for rent, and we offer editing suites with the latest technology. We have a makeup studio and beautiful spaces to prepare for your show. Don't forget to ask about our convenient photography studio to capture professional headshots or redefine your new look. Our state-of-the-art facility is intentionally laid out to accommodate your multimedia needs.